Yeah, so
Are we live yet?
yeah, just one
Yes.
second.
Yeah, I think we
Upendra,
are
can you
live.
make sir like yeah?
Yeah, we are
Okay,
live.
thank you. Um, Welcome everyone. Welcome to another episode of Conversation with Sam. So today we are going to continue with our topic of new economy, and we are focusing on cellularism today. So cellularism is a new concept, and we are honored today to uh, be joined by Dr. Ghosh. He was he was a strategist at McKinsey and Company and was the head, and he has also helped many governments and organizations in strategic viewpoints. So he's about to join us in a few minutes, I think. But before that, I'll request Sam sir to address our audience.
Thanks,
And
Premvada. Thanks, Upendra. Good morning and greetings from Chicago to everyone. Partha is having some issue on the computer, so he should be joining very soon. He apparently didn't have the right software or whatever, so Upendra is sorting it out. In the meantime, we can chat a little bit. I was just telling Premvada that I came from Latin America, uh, came back on Thursday. I was there giving a keynote speech at a major AI conference in Dominican Republic. A friend of mine used to be president of Dominican Republic, President Fernandez, and he had invited almost 400-500 people uh, because everyone in Latin America is very concerned about AI like everywhere else. They don't know what will happen to their economy, production that supports their export and all. And they are basically very worried. So it was a full day conference. I gave a keynote speech there from my perspective, what I think is the challenge and are the issues. Hopefully, next day or so, I'll be able to put that online on my LinkedIn and other platforms, including X, for friends to look at. But it was very interesting meeting. Uh, the main concern developing world has is their ability to pay. I met a teacher there. He said, "Look, I love to use AI, but I can't afford to pay $120 a month or $40 a month or ultimately $200 a month. I don't make that kind of money to be able to pay." And that is going to be a challenge in the beginning for many people. We in US take it for granted that it's okay to pay, $100 for cable TV, $100 for, you know, AI, maybe 50 to $100 for a phone, $50 for internet, and all that stuff is okay when your income is in tens of thousands of dollars. But developing world has this major issue. So we talked about a lot of these issues. Uh, Today we will continue our conversation on economy, and I'm hoping that Partha could join us because I'd like him to be there when I introduce him, give him a little bit of my personal touch to his introduction, because I've known Partha for many, many years, almost 30, 40 years. And Partha used to be in Japan. He was head of McKinsey in Japan at one time, many years ago. Married a Japanese woman. Um, he lives in Boston. He has two wonderful kids, sort of joint Japanese Indian features. Very interesting, both kids. I know them well. And Partha graduated also from the Kharagpur IIT many, many years ago. So Partha has an institute on leadership in Kharagpur. And Partha is pretty active, good friend. And I was talking to him, and he talked about his idea of cellular economy, which is more like a cell that you have in the telephone. Each cell is independent, but when you go from one cell to another cell, you have a handover protocol. So let's say you're driving from here to New York, from Chicago to New York, and you hand over from one cell to another cell on your journey. And that handover is seamless. It has a protocol. It tracks you throughout on your way. And that is the kind of thinking he wants to talk about. It is, in a sense, decentralized economy, but it is more at a cell level. Doesn't have to be one-to-one mapping with the mobile cell. It could be a district, it could be taluka, but the key is to define protocol. Saying, what do you do from one cell to another cell? How do you deal with economy? And that's what he's going to talk about if he can get connected. Okay. So it'll be interesting to hear him. I hope he get connected. In the meantime, I once again want to welcome you all and thank you for joining us on a regular basis. I hope these conversations are useful, fruitful, productive. I enjoy interacting with you all because I also learn a lot from listening to you. And it makes me feel that I'm a little more current. Otherwise I'll feel like I'm obsolete. And believe me, when you are old in your 80s, nobody cares. I can assure you. Nobody wants to talk to you. Nobody wants to deal with you. Everybody thinks, oh, you're an old fogey. What do you know? So we in our own way, in our society, tend to ignore older people and sort of reject them, saying they have no wisdom left. They don't understand today's reality. But young people don't realize that to get here, we also had to go through the same path that you are taking today. We were also young. We also had to raise children. We also had to survive, compete. And we do have some experiences to share. But in today's world, people don't want to listen. Nobody wants to listen. Everybody wants to talk. Everyone has advice. And everyone has their own echo chambers. They live in their own little world. They listen to each other and they think the world is all about what they hear. And it's hard to get out of that echo chamber of your friends in the office, outside office, what they value, how they value each other, what they like, what they don't like, what they aspire for. All of these things then set standards for you. And those standards are different from standards perhaps we in 80s have. And that's the conflict I see all the time when I talk to young people, And that's probably normal, nothing unique. Maybe we did the same thing, I don't remember. But the only difference is we couldn't talk to our parents like that. We couldn't tell our parents that you don't know, that you don't understand. That vocabulary didn't exist. I remember once when my daughter was 7 years old, I was doing something, and then she said, "Dad, this is not fair." And I had never understood that 7-year-old can tell her dad that it is not fair. And she was right. It wasn't fair. And I was shocked. I said, I couldn't tell my dad that this is not fair. So you have both sides of the coin, you know. But more and more I talk to young people, more and more I'm convinced that they are on their own journey. They have set their own standards as to what is good, what is bad, what is fair, what is not fair. And there is a huge difference today in the value system. And it's going to catch up at some point in time. To me, the most important thing is fundamentals. And fundamentals never change. Fundamentals related to whether it is democracy, freedom, human rights, love, uh, truth, trust, the things that I talk about all the time in our conversations. Those fundamentals to me are universal. These things don't change with time. Fire is something that don't change with time. Air, water don't change with time. Of course, you can argue and say, well, temperature rise is changing with time. But then the question is, how do you see the whole picture? Is Partha there? Hello?
I think he's joined, but
He has joined.
Partha, are you there?
Let me call him. Meanwhile, you can continue, please.
Sorry, I wish we had, done a trial, because we just take it for granted sometimes that it's just one click. And I'm sure Partha is my age, maybe a little younger. And, we do tend to goof up, and we don't have the same reflexes that you guys have,
no, sir. Sometimes we also take time to.
Yeah, but sometimes I realize that we don't have the same reflexes.
No, sir.
That's what happens,
Yeah.
So,
So there are some comments coming about the show. So Kiran
sure,
Kumar,
please, let's talk about that. Yeah.
yeah. So Kiran Kumar is saying that
Hi, Kiran.
it's definitely interesting and very productive. Thanks for these knowledge sessions.
Thanks, Kiran. It makes a big difference to me to have people like you there and commenting on it. I appreciate your generosity.
Yes. Parminder Bans is saying good morning to you.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Parminderji. How are you? I know him.
Okay. So can you just brief us about your AI conference? Like, what was the topic?
Yeah,
What
you
did
see,
you
the
explore?
conference was an all-day conference uh, in Dominican Republic at a resort. Subject was AI innovations, opportunities, and stuff like that. And first, President Fernando spoke, and then I spoke as a keynote speaker. And I had about 30 minutes to speak. I basically talked about three things. One, how did we get to AI? I think Partha has joined.
Yeah, it's fine.
Let me finish this in 1 second. So I basically
Can you
talked
hear
about
me
how
now?
did we get. Hi,
Yeah.
let's continue with Partha, and we can come back to
Yeah.
my topic later on. Hi, Partha, how are you?
Hello, sir.
Can you hear me, Partha? Uh-oh.
No,
What did you
I think
do?
he's.
Don't
He hit
push
the
the
wrong
wrong
button.
button.
Yeah, click the wrong button. Yes, sir. So
Yeah.
tell us. Yeah.
So I once talks about how did we get to AI? And that journey of 60 years that I personally had experience, and I had the front row seat. with the birth of transistor to integrated circuits, microprocessors, memories, software, C++, operating systems, personal computers, all that, mobile phone, internet, VLSI, all that ultimately brought us to where we are in AI. So I talked about that piece of the journey quickly. So it's not today's creation. AI would not be possible if there was no transistor. AI wouldn't be possible if there was no, operating systems and, huge memory capacities and power and water and all that stuff. And what is AI? And the best way I can describe AI is that it has ability to read 100,000 books that I want to read and summarize it for me in 5 seconds that I can never do. Humanly, it is impossible. So I can have somebody who can do a lot of these things for me as long as I know what I want them to do. If I want them to draw something, they can draw, write, read, think, organize, structure. And it's a fascinating thing to have. But unfortunately, it can only do that on the information it has. It can't do that on the information they don't have. So if I'm looking for something on Ajanta caves, there is limited information they have on Ajanta caves. But it is one thing to go to internet for Ajanta caves. It's another thing to physically go to Ajanta cave and see it and experience it and feel it. Okay. So there is limitation. So I talked about all of that. Opportunities and threat with AI. Then I talked about where are we in the world? How did we get here? With polarized politics, economy, globalization, conflicts. And then finally, I talked about what should be the roadmap for AI, which is human-centric. Okay. Hi, Partha, how are you?
Very good. So sorry.
Finally, we get
Yeah,
connected.
can you hear me?
We can hear you, we can see you, we can see your smile.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So let me take a minute to introduce you. You have two of my colleagues with you. Priyamvada is from England, and Upendra, you have been talking to, who has been in the background, is at Dallas. And
Right.
these two really put this together, along with other colleagues of mine like Rakesh Patel and others who help on and off on many issues. So there is a group of young people in the background who make this happen. So I'm thankful to them. I show up at the last minute, and we get hundreds of young people to listen to us and participate and encourage us. Okay. So today, we are privileged to have a friend of mine, Partha Ghosh, to talk to us about cellular economy. As I said earlier, I have known Partha for many years, decades. We've been old friends. He was head of McKinsey in Japan, married a beautiful Japanese girl, has wonderful two kids. They were here a couple of years ago and we had dinner together. And Partha and I have been concerned about India and the world for a long time. So we discuss on and off, then we disconnect, and then we reconnect again after sometimes 10 years, 5 years, and as if we have never lost the contact.
That's true.
Okay. So just a few days ago, or a few weeks ago, I just decided to call him again because something came up about AI, and I wanted IIT to have a national conference on AI in India, not the kind of conference that government is pushing. So I called Partha. Partha has a big institute on leadership at IIT Kharagpur. And luck would have it that the director of IIT Kharagpur was online. So three of us spoke shared some ideas, and they were planning to do something like that anyway. So serendipity would have it that we were all thinking about similar things. And then I mentioned to Partha about our weekly conversations, and I said, would you be agreeable to talking to us? And he readily agreed. And I hope this is not the only session. We can have him come back on leadership at some point in time, talk about his institute. He has a lot of great speakers that come to his institute talking about leadership. So without taking much time, on behalf of all of us, I want to welcome Partha Ghosh, close friend of mine, a leader, a management consultant with a lot of wisdom. Tell us about his idea of cellular economy. Partha, our format is Priyamvada would normally introduce the session, which she did before you connected. Then I would introduce the speaker. Speaker will spend 20, 30 minutes, whatever they feel like, on the topic, and then we'll open up for a broader conversation. And there are lots of people who join, and there are lots of thousands of people who would watch online afterward. Okay. So we are indeed privileged to have you, and floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
shouldn't say
Thank you.
floor, but the screen is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam. It's absolutely a privilege to be with you. And indeed, I had a 4 decades of friendship with a great personality like Dr. Sam Pitroda. And every time we met, whether it was by chance in the airport, and I think we met each other in 5 airports, if I counted right.
Yes.
And then sometimes in Boston, sometimes in Chicago, sometimes in Delhi. Every interaction has been very enriching, forward looking, truthful, and thoughtful. The points that Sam was making when I was trying to link in. So I'll build on that friendship of ours that indeed, like Sam, not as visible, I've been quite concerned about India. I have given perhaps 200 speeches in different forums in India, from FICCI to Bombay Chambers to PhD, which is the Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, and then in Bengal Chamber, Madras Chamber, Bangalore, etc. And it is clear that, in our nation, on one side, you could see a lot of energy, a lot of hope. On the other side, clearly, there are several fundamentals which I think we have lost touch with. And in the process, perhaps we keep on struggling while other countries keep on moving forward. But today's session, as Sam introduced, is about a new economic construct which I've been thinking about for last, I would say, almost 15, 20 years. Though I'm not an economist, I'm an engineer by training, management consultant by profession. But in the process, you cannot avoid the subject of economics. In fact, the great economists that, if you look through history, none of them were economists, but they look at the subject with the fresh eyes, and perhaps that's what I did. And I did come up with a term which I call cellularism, uh, which I will explain in a moment. But before I get there, I want to really set up the stage, which Sam was talking about when I was trying to log in. It is clear that our world, our civilization, is at crossroads. I would say profound crossroads, fractured by deepening inequality, wealth gap, collapsing ecological balance, definitely eroding moral and ethical sense, and in the process, rising fragmentation. That's what defines our civilization today. What worries me the most, the institutions, the ideologies, the governing processes that once propelled, which looked like human progress, are definitely failing to address the scale and complexity of today's challenges. So it is increasingly clear with me, and I'm sure with Sam and many of you, that we have to reimagine the very calculus, if I use the word calculus or arithmetic or mathematics of progress across ethics, economics, ecology, and design a new global order in which nations thrive in harmony with one another and, most importantly, with nature. We have lost respect for nature, and in the process, as you know, we are seeing all kind of climatic events at a higher frequency across the world. So we need a change. So today, I'll offer you, or for your consideration, a new economic construct, cellularism, as a third alternative beyond capitalism and socialism. But before I describe its contours or what does it really mean, I want to briefly touch on three fundamental questions. And I was so glad, and that's why Sam and I are great friends. When I heard Sam and I was trying to log in, he was talking about some of the fundamentals which never change. And indeed, when we lose touch with the fundamentals, we get confused, we get derailed, and in the process, we keep on hurting nature, we are hurting each other, and progress gets stunted. So, first, I want to talk about what are the visible and invisible forces which shaping our geopolitical and economic realities today, and then ask a very fundamental question: are we prepared for the implications if we don't change? Second question I will raise: why have our current models, despite immense philosophical debates, there have been a lot of great philosophers, thinkers. You can go back all the way to Chanakya, to Aristotle, to Leonardo da Vinci, to John Locke, to Isaac Newton, to Tagore, to Mahatma Gandhi. There have been a lot of great philosophers. There are a lot of great institutions like World Bank, United Nations, and technological advancements have clearly taken place. But yet, they have been inadequate and even many times I would say counterproductive. Why? So we are perhaps not touching the fundamentals. That leads to my third question: what might an economic system look like that is grounded not in competition or zero sum game, but not connected with extraction, but in self organization, plus some gain, focus on dignity, and balancing multiple dimensions of our relationship with nature? So these are the 3 points I'll touch on. Since we have lost some time, I would go a bit rapidly, but maybe in the Q&A session, I would be able to make up. The first thing I want to take a moment on the point of inflection that we are in. And what does inflection mean? That if we extend the past into the future with a straight line, we will be in danger. We need to change. Is a point of inflection, a new S curve, and we do not know the shape of that S curve. But we know we need a new S curve. So I want to discuss a little bit what does it mean. Technologically, if you think, we are clearly advancing at I would say, breathtaking pace. From genomics, artificial intelligence, new materials, space travel, clearly it is opening up new possibilities. Geopolitically, we see alliances that were formed are dissolving. There's a state of chaos, as we know. We do not know who is connected with whom. Disintegration is rising. Economically, a lot of new business models are emerging. There's no doubt about it. If you look at Uber, Airbnb, Amazon, there are new types, Facebook, so Meta. There's no doubt there are a lot of new business models. But when you look at the economic models and the financial distresses that nations are in, both advanced and less advanced, then you question how come the business models of corporates and economic models that governments run, why they are in disharmony with each other. And socially, the desire for self-determination is manifesting both in constructive and destructive ways. 10, 12 years ago, we saw the rise of Arab Spring. Now we see the Houthi rebels, the struggles with Hamas, the Palestine Hamas, Israel's wars. There's a continuous struggle across the world. Yet we have formed the League of Nations after the First World War. After the Second World War, we formed the United Nations, but seems like we do not know how to manage the forces. Then I asked the question, why? If we on one side have got this such great universities, ideologies, so many great technologies, so many, uh, I would say, institutions with a noble purpose like United Nations. What does the United Nations say? We will never have conflicts, we'll never have wars. But the wars have continuous, conflicts continue to increase. World Bank to fund development of poorer parts of the world. But have they worked? Most probably we could agree that they have not worked. And are they working? Are they helping the poor? Yes, maybe, but is it helping insufficiently? So, what I sensed, and there I would build on my experience as Sam introduced me, I indeed had the privilege to work with leaders and governments across many nations. Actually, the other day I was counting, I worked in 36 nations. So happened, I didn't plan that way. And where I had the opportunity to meet the heads of states, heads of corporates. And I did feel when I go deep into discussions with them, like when discuss with Sam, people, there's a certain degree of discomfort. Companies are making money, but they still feel uncomfortable. Governments are doing well. I remember I was talking to the Crown Prince of Bahrain, and he was concerned as what's going on in the Middle East. We have no lack of wealth. We have oil and gas, but somehow we are not in harmony with each other. I still remember that discussion almost 20 years ago. So then I starting asking them, why this discomfort in spite of having business schools, in spite of having economic schools? I personally feel the old equations that got embedded in our instinct. One is Adam Smith's power of self interest, and the other is Charles Darwin, which was articulated by Herbert Spencer, survival of the fittest, has really trapped us into zero sum game. Because if I combine power of self interest and survival of the fittest together into one statement, obviously we become selfish and we think in terms of zero sum game, and that is where we are trapped today. So for one to win, someone else has to lose. And I think that spirit has gotten embedded in our, uh, if I may use the word, in our basic thought processes. And as a result, in spite of all these great institutions, we are struggling. Now, if you take it forward, in the process, what we have seen, indeed, societies, individuals, countries have become self centered, communities are fragmenting, there are more tensions between different segments of society. A moral compass, I use the word, is definitely faltering. Cooperation between individuals are weakening, cooperation between nations, ideologies are literally becoming adversarial. And the process, the balance of three E's, I always talk about the balance of three E's, which is ecology, equality, and ethics, has been lost. That's where we are. Even in affluent societies like in the United States, I'm sure Sam would agree, and many of you are in this country, youth today are highly disillusioned. Adults are confused or complicit. And on the other side, the 80% of the global population, maybe 70%, is trying to survive with less than $2 a day. That is the state of the world. Something is fundamentally broken, not just externally, which we see, but within us. And we have to be very honest about it. It is within us. Our internal capacity to make ethical choices is endangered, and as a result, our ecosystems are also endangered. So I feel, as Sam was talking about the fundamentals, we have to go to that level of fundamental change if we really want to create a better world. And we have to ask a fundamental question: are global governance processes truly working for the betterment of the civilization? And as Mahatma Gandhi is talking about, and I'll talk about it a bit later, uplift for all, Sarvadaya is a Sanskrit word, Sarva Daya, uplift for all. That's not happening. We talked about it. The Sarvadaya is a term which Mahatma Gandhi coined almost 100 years ago. in 1924, in 1920s. And today we are in 2025. But we have got terms. Tagore had a similar concept. Vivekananda had similar concepts, but they are all 100 years ago, and yet we are gone in the other direction. So, the other point I want to make, ironically, we are living in an age of knowledge explosion. There's no doubt about it. In fact, Sam used to talk about in a speech he delivered in Boston in Loyal when we launched the Boston Pledge. He talked about technology as a leveler, bring everyone together.
How long ago was that? Was that 20 years ago?
That is not happening.
No, the Partha, was it 20 years ago or 25 years ago?
It was 25 years old. I'm glad.
Wow,
I'm so glad. See, Sam is more alert than I am. In
25
fact,
years
next
ago.
year we are going to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Boston
Oh
Pledge.
my God.
Thank you very much, Sam. So, he talked about technology as a leveler, and it absolutely made sense that if we spread the technology properly, we can bring people together and literally celebrate the concept of Sarvada. So I want to talk about that a little bit, why that is not happening. We have to really have to get to the whys, which I learned in Japan, that you have to go to the fifth level of whys, which you call Ishikawa diagram, to get to the fundamental. So if you look at the knowledge explosion world we are living, we have failed to spread the beauty and the learning of joy, of wisdom, reaching to the truth. I'm so glad Sam was talking about truth. Our institutions, corporate, governmental, educational, often end up, unfortunately, reinforcing lower level instincts rather than elevate our collective intelligence. Low level instincts, find a job, quickly trying to become rich, learn subject, then you will be able to get the good grade. These are very easy things to do. We are never talking about how we improve our collective intelligence. As a result, what is happening? We confuse accumulating wealth with success, which is serving others, power with wisdom, and growth with extraction. We extract from nature, and in the process, we think we are growing. So, we need a new way of thinking. That leads to my second point. What are the limits of capitalism and socialism? Now, it is clear to all of us with the collapse of Soviet Union, which happened in the 1990s, and the Occupy Wall Street, which had happened literally 20 years later in 2008 to 2007 to 2008-9, that period, that both the ends of the spectrum, capitalism versus socialism, one driven by the market, the other one driven by the government, there are fundamental symptoms of deeper structural failures on both the sides. Socialism, which is top down, reductionist planning, fails to account for cultural context, self organization, self expression, or freedom of expression, and ecological reality. And that's why it did not work, because it becomes a huge system with few people at the top running the show. Capitalism, on the other side, may be on dynamic, often commodifies human beings, exploits nature, and widens inequality. And why does it happen? Because as technologies become more and more expensive, it ends up serving where that technology can make money easily than using the technology where it could be serving the people at the base of the pyramid. So, in the process, more technologies we develop, obviously they could become more expensive. Recently Zuckerberg hired a couple of people with $100 million bonus. Now, obviously, for him to justify that investment, he has to serve those communities in the world where he could, or the company could make money. So he could justify the investment. So obviously, you end up serving the privileged, and the underprivileged gets left out. And with artificial intelligence, as Sam and I were talking about, that danger is even more. But on the other side, if AI is used intelligently, I think we could speed up the development of the concept of Sarvodaya. So, We have to acknowledge a simple truth: the global economy has outgrown the economic theories of the past 2 centuries. They were good for a while, they helped the Industrial Revolution. Some parts of the world did become more rich. That's why we are speaking on Webcast. We have developed a lot of different technologies. But I think those equations are not working anymore. So that leads to my uh, next point, which is what should be those technologies be, and how should we move forward in view of what we have discussed so far. Am I with you so far?
Yep.
Yeah. So the discipline I find, I'll go deeper now. The discipline economics as I see it, and though as I mentioned, I'm not an economist, but I spent a lot of hours, a lot of years studying economics because as a problem solver, management consultant, when you're serving heads of state, you have to understand macroeconomics. When you are serving heads of companies, you have to understand microeconomics. So I feel is deeply influenced by Newtonian physics and assumed cause effect determinism, rational behavior, homogeneity of preferences. That's what they've assumed, that every individual thinks the same way. You create this incentive, people would behave in a certain way. Maybe it worked for a small group of people in England where much of economics developed in the 17th and 18th century, thanks to Adam Smith and many others. But it neglected fundamentally the cultural diversity. Someone in the northern part of a country behaves differently from the southern part of the country. The weather is different, the culture is different, food habits are different. The spiritual aspiration, it is neglected. Like India, we give a lot of emphasis on spiritual development. So the incentives that will work for a person in, say, Surat will be different from that incentive how it will work in Benares. But both the people are equally important. And we have also neglected how each communities are embedded their own ecosystem. And I will touch on it because that's what I people don't realize made Japan a very different kind of country. But I'll come to that later. So what we now need is not a mechanical fix, but biological reset for the entire discipline of economics. Because economics was influenced by Newtonian physics, because the economists which are coming up following Adam Smith, they started thinking in terms of economic equations, which can follow the equations of physics. Law of gravity, the power of free market, invisible hand. You cannot see the force of gravity, you cannot see the forces of free market. So they started looking for equivalence between physics and economics. And in the process, I think we made the subject of economics very mechanical, driven by mathematical models, without realizing individuals are not commodities. When you drop a stone, it reaches the ground at a certain speed, driven by uh, the laws of physics, the gravitational force. But you cannot say every human being interacts with each other with the same spirit. And that's where I think the whole subject of economics need to be redefined. So it's beyond capitalism, socialism, which are not working. The subject of economics itself has to redefine. That brings me to the fundamental point. We need a mechanical fix, a biological reset. We have to move beyond Cartesian thinking towards biological intelligence, learn from the biological systems of nature. So that defines, brings to my real point, cellularism. Cellularism, when I first thought about it, it was driven by when I was doing a piece of work in Turkey, that the Turkish Prime Minister raised a very interesting question. Partha, what is the difference between the way you have seen Japanese working on the floor versus you have visited several factories in Turkey? The Turkish people work on the floor. I said, wow, wow, that's a great question. Because he was making a very good point. I visited Japanese companies, they have the same German machines in the automotive companies to stamp different parts of the body of the car. And we use the same machine in Turkey, but I hear the Japanese productivity is 2.5 times higher than that of Turkey. Same machine. So he, a very bright person, Solomon Demirel, said, Partha, I do not believe it is the hardware, but it's something to do with the humanware. It triggered my sense. And indeed, the way the Japanese work in a factory versus when you see our friends in India work in a factory or Americans work in a factory, it's really different. Japanese are sleek, they are very clean in the way they touch the machines. And in the process, the dance that happens between the machine and the individual, the tango is different. And obviously, the productivity of the machine, the product machine works faster when they change over from one design to the next design. They do that in 2.5 minutes, which takes 2 hours in a typical factory in Turkey or India. 2 hours of changeover time versus 2.5 minutes. And that's where the same machine's capacity utilization significantly improves. So that's when I started talking about that it is the management of the human being, looking at each human being with respect, and then you have to train them or design systems which suits that culture. So Cellularism offers, in short, basically I would say several points. Firstly, it's a distributed empowerment, very much in line with what Mahatma Gandhi used to talk about, that the people at the village level has to be empowered. They should be the ones who will be making the decision how the resources in that community has to be owned, used, distributed, and in the process create the growth of the community. And I saw that when I was visiting in Japan in a place called Arita and Imarai. Arita manufactures the best porcelain products of the world. It generates about, I think, 20 to 30 billion dollars of exports only from one village. But why so? That community has been working with the local soil, the mud, in the region for last 17 generations. So, in fact, I met the most sophisticated porcelain maker in Arita, and he was a 17th generation person. His personal wealth is about $5 billion, but he himself is making the vases, sitting with another 500 people next to him, with complete, I would use the Sanskrit word Shraddha, Nishtha, that they are at that point when he's making the vase, he's literally putting his best effort as if he's in the middle of a prayer. And it's based on the local ecology which has existed in that part of the country for last, as I mentioned, 17 generation, almost 400, 500 years, based on the soil and based on the artistic talent. But ready for the global stage. I remember a tea set was selling, and that was the cheapest one for $1,000. $1,000 tea set, but brilliantly made. Now I saw the same thing in Kanazawa, another part of Japan. I can go on and on, but a lot of people don't realize the success of Japan was its ability to respect the local cultures in each part of the country and modernize it in a fashion which could allow them to produce products which shines on the global stage. Same with the fermentation technologies. Japan is very good in fermentation because many of their foods are based on fermentation. So the best today whiskey, Suntory, some of the best beers are coming out of Japan. Some of the best cosmetics coming out of Japan, again based on their molecule management technologies, which is again goes back to not modern chemistry but cultural chemistry, which developed 500 years ago. So that's the most important part. Then, of course, when you think of cellularism, which is a village which is adaptable and responsive, it could be network, particularly in today's day. When Mahatma Gandhi talked about Sarvodaya, the concept of networking was not there. Villages were far away from each other. But today we can connect the villages through their own languages. So the villager in Punjab is talking to a villager in Gujarat with a villager in Bengal in their own mother tongue. But the cloud and the AI is doing the translation both ways. So those are possible today. So resource allocation efficiency is not top down, it's bottom up. And in the process, what you are doing, you are raising the possibility of introducing 100 brand names on the global stage. And that's exactly what happened in Japan. Between 1960 to 1975, in 15 years, Japan introduced to the world about 8 dozen brand names. 8 dozen. From wristwatches, Casio, Seiko, to big machinery, Hitachis and Toshibas, in between cars, motorcycle cameras, fax machine, consumer electronics, can go on and on, including fashion like Hanai Mori, Isemiyake, etc., etc. So I think that's a very important point that for any country to grow, in fact, silently that has happened also in the United States. The New Jersey pharmaceutical industry, or Thomas Edison, who did not finish high school, created a major revolution, has happened based on the local environment. So I think this concept of cellularism is basically respecting each community's their culture, their skill sets, their local soils, agriculture, climate, and in the process lead to situations which could become economic centers of activity. But in the villages, you do not have to go to big cities. And that way, we will also bring a better balance on ecology because cities are hot, they are centers of crime, they create traffic jams. You spend a lot of carbon dioxide for the nature, and in the process, you really do not achieve anything except a lot of traffic jams. It's nice to say that Bombay will be the biggest city in the world, but what is the meaning of that? So what? I rather have beautiful million villages as centers of excellence. Each has got its own character, each are independent, and in each place you find some unique themes which makes brings out the beauty of life. So that is cellularism. So now comes the question that how should we position cellularism? It is a major transformation because it is talking about moving away from Adam Smith's power of self-interest to power of self-expression. So any system should help people to express themselves in the spirit of selflessness and collective good. That I want to contribute to my village with my neighbor to bring the porcelain on the global stage. I have seen, when you go to Aritha or Imara, I recommend everyone to visit that. Small homes on the backside, they have this kiln. On the front, they have the store. The wife is basically selling the porcelain. On the backside, the husband and the son are working in the kiln. And you see that dynamic. You go from one home to the next home, and together they sell about $20 billion of porcelain to the world. And you see a lot of people from all over the world visiting this place. It's it's a beautiful expression of local talent for the global stage. Survival of the fittest versus fitness of nature. We are focused on the survival of the fittest at the cost of nature. I think the term that we have to promote is fitness of nature, where compatibility, not competition, defines success. And then, of course, the point which is most fundamental, we have to move away from mechanistic economics to biological, ethical economic thinking, where systems adapt and evolve in a biological fashion, not in a Cartesian fashion, which is hardcore. So that will require today, because next question you could ask, how do we get there? I think it's possible. It's possible. But we have to make that very hard choice that we are breaking away everything that shaped us over the last 250 years, the way we have designed the system to new order. In fact, Sam wrote the famous book, which I love. I read it two, three times, Redesigning the World. And it has got similar thoughts. So I think first we have to think of how to manage what I would call strategic and operational duality. Because the world has to go on. We have to manage the operations that are going on while we are making strategic shifts. So, for example, if I talk about India, we can say that look, our top priority is to fund and develop the villages, not fund the IITs, not fund the universities or big cities, not do the Shinkansen from Delhi to Bombay, because only a few people would afford that, and there will be a lot of accidents on the way. But focus on the village development based on the skills, and the education system of each village should be such that it would be able to work with the local ecology while we have to keep on managing the current operation. Engagement of human intellect as an economic force. We have to respect each human being, whether they are the tribals. We look at tribals as backward. We use the word backward society, backward people. That itself is demeaning because they are different, not backward. In fact, they are the ones who are struggling more. I've been to some tribal villages around Shantiniketan. Shantiniketan was set up by Tagore, beautiful place where Mrs. Gandhi studied, Mrs. Indira Gandhi. But if you go 10 miles away, you see villages where there is no sanitation. Beautiful people, strong, comfort, and they have ideas. We interviewed them only about last year. They've got a lot of ideas. I asked them, what do you want to do? And they gave me beautiful answers. They are left around, and that's just one village, and there are some million villages around India. So I think we have to engage with the human intellect as an economic force so we can bring out their creativity, their consciousness, and in the process, their caring of the local ecological system. They do not understand that. We got to make them understand. And then we have to redefine what is wealth. That's a very big challenge. From financial accumulation, we have to think of wealth is the enrichment of the human being and natural capital. Tagore used to talk about it in very loud terms. In almost every poetry and songs of his, he talked about the enrichment of the human being. In fact, in the dialogue between Albert Einstein and Tagore in Berlin in his home, that was the fundamental focus. Tagore's focus on what is the real truth of the world, truth of the universe. And Albert Einstein was totally impressed. And he said, now I know why people call you Gurudev. You are now my guru. That was Albert Einstein had to share with Tagore. So I think we have the ideas. Now time has come. And finally, I want to make a point. The change that we are talking about is for the world. It's not only for India. And India, of course, is a very significant component of the world, both in terms of size, population, and in terms of history. Very few people, country could talk about 7,000, 8,000 years of history. So it is for the world, but India has a very unique opportunity now to take the leadership to bring this new system for the world. Because that's what I felt in this journey. We must also draw, as a result, from the ancient wisdom, particularly the philosophical and spiritual traditions of the what I mentioned earlier in the Indian subcontinent. I really mean Indian subcontinent because some of the early developments happened in Taxila, which is in Pakistan today. Some happened in Nalanda, some happened in Dhaka, Bikramshila, which is in Bangladesh. And from Kashmir to Sri Lanka, we had a lot of centers of learning, centers of thinking. And I think we have to bring the Vedic concept of dharma, and dharma not in a religious sense, in a spiritual sense. What does it mean? Righteous duty reminds us of the leadership is all about power, not about power, but about responsibility, righteous duty. Unfortunately, we confuse today. We think leaders have power, they are the bosses, but it is about duty. That's again what Mahatma Gandhi, people like Swami Vivekananda, Aurobindo is to believe in. The ideas of seva, which Mahatma is to talk about, selfless service, samsara, the cycles of life, satya, which Sam was talking about, truthfulness, speak to adaptability, resilience, and moral integrity. I think we have to bring that forward by designing systems where we are practicing, not talk about it, because we do talk about it, which is going on in India right now. We talk about how great we are, but that doesn't make us great. We'll become great if we do things what Japan has done. In fact, Japan is a perfect representation of Vedic philosophy. The humility, the integrity, the honesty, the ethics, and the way they connect with the nature. I think Vedic philosophy is at work in Japan. And now time has come where Vedic philosophy was born and practiced. Could we reclaim that in the context of creating a modern world? For countries like India, this means designing human centered, agro based, ethics driven economics with villages as the nuclei of excellence. So you have 10 million villages, 10 million centers of excellence, each different from each other, but networked. You learn from each other through the cloud. They speak their own languages with pride. They should not feel they are second class privilege because they don't speak English or Hindi. Let them speak Tamil and only Tamil. Let them speak Gujarati and only Gujarati, but with pride. The Nobel Prizes that we have won in literature, they all have been in their local languages. Tagore didn't write it. He spoke beautiful English, but he's got his Nobel Prize for Gitanjali. It's written in Bengali. Today, Bengalis do not are studying Bengali; they're studying English. Second language is Hindi. Bengali is getting undermined. So we have to think of some fundamentals. Gandhiji's Sarvodaya, upliftment for all, remains deeply relevant. It rejects both capitalistic exploitation and socialistic bureaucracy, advocating instead of network of self-reliant communities rooted in service. And Gandhiji had another very interesting concept, which is a bit different from what I call cellularism, but I think makes sense. Trusteeship, that the community activities are owned by a trust, which brings all the villages together. So no single individual is accumulating the wealth. They're leading a good life. It is that way capitalistic, is innovative, but it is as part of a trust. So I think we are at a great time to look at the future with a new perspective. After all, we are at a point of inflection, and which the world realizes, by the way. The whole world, I talk to various people, everyone uses the word inflection. But that gives us an opportunity to define the next S curve. And I feel what we have discussed today and what I think Sam has been discussing with you and his book, is redesigning the world, gives us a lot of fuel, lot of economic and spiritual thoughts which would come together to create a new system for our civilization. And we are talking about our civilization and some of the lessons, some of the experiments in India, and I mean the Indian subcontinent, because Mahatma Gandhi, Swami Vivekananda, all the people we talk about, Tagore, their definition of India was different from the India that we talk today. Their definition of India was from Afghanistan to Myanmar, from Kashmir to Sri Lanka. That's what all the heroes that we talk about, they envisioned. But unfortunately, we ended up with a different definition of India. But I think it's temporary, because if we go back to the fundamentals and celebrate cellularism with the concept of Vasudevam Kutumbakam, which is becoming a popular statement these days, but we have to practice it, that one humanity, then I think we have a big role to play, particularly youngsters who have joined today. You have a tremendous opportunity to create a world which will be significantly more equitable, sustainable, fruitful, and most importantly, enlightening, which will continue to enlighten our civilization. With that, I would like to
Thank
thank you very much for this
thank you.
opportunity.
Thank you, Partha. Really, really appreciate it. It was excellent. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm going to request you to come back next week.
Done.
Okay?
And I will
Because,
make we
please,
practice.
because we really need people to interact with you. Today, there isn't enough time anymore. We are already, 10 minutes over 1 hour.
Right.
And there are lots of questions, and I'm sure there are lots of young people who want to interact with you. I would rather have an hour to interact with you than have 5 or 10 minutes.
That's true.
Okay, I think you have very well articulated a lot of issues together that I have been talking about, others have been talking about, and you have been able to put it in right perspective. I enjoyed your conversation
Thank you.
or your presentation, and I hope Priyambada and others
Yes, sir.
agree with me.
Yeah,
And we
there are
need
questions
a
actually,
deep,
but yeah.
yeah, we need a deeper dive. Okay,
Deeper dive, yeah.
Priyambada, what
Yeah.
do you think?
Yes, so next time we can meet again and
Yeah, next week we
we'll,
start with questions
yeah,
and
We start,
interactions.
yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
we'll do that.
so
Okay.
we'll have 1 hour of interactions with Partha, and if that is not enough, we'll ask him to come again.
Yeah.
Okay, but
I always enjoy my
it's a
time with you,
great
Sam. You know that.
presentation.
Yeah.
I would really like you to tell us more about Japan some
Yeah.
Yes,
point in time.
actually.
Okay, because Japan, I assume you speak Japanese.
I do. I can manage a conversation like this.
Yeah,
Not a speech. Not a speech.
yeah. But you know Japan well because of your home environment and all. And I think we should learn more from Japan. I get fascinated with Japanese
Absolutely.
people, culture, society. Whenever I go there, I find that they are so very unique, and the world doesn't really know enough about them.
I think so. You're right.
World talks about Europe, US, China, India, Russia, but I think Japan is a unique place in human civilization, and we need to learn a lot from Japan.
I
Yeah.
think so. I
So
really.
someday maybe we'll request you to come and just talk about Japan.
Man, I would love to do that.
Okay,
It
great.
would be good training for myself how to put together Japan into 5, 6 different components.
Yeah, I think we need to learn a lot from Japan. Okay.
Yeah, also if you could like talk how we can replicate Japan in India, like we can take forward like in the future, because we really need to now in the world, like in today's stage of like concentration of power, we have a lot to, I mean, the future, we have a lot of work to do. So
A lot of work. A lot of work.
Priyambada, how many questions you have? You have a lot of questions.
yeah, we have actually. Do you want to like take just one?
Let's take
No, I
one.
think if you want to take one or two,
Yeah, yeah. Let's take
okay,
one.
let's take one or two because otherwise it'll go on and on, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll maybe just one question. Like
Yeah.
I can. So this is about like blockchain and cellularism. Um, do we have an opportunity to marry both?
Oh, very
Sure,
good question.
sure.
Kiran, that's a very good question. It's from Kiran Kumar, right?
Yeah.
Very good. The answer is quick answer is yes. But we have to do it in a bottom-up fashion, not top-down, which means blockchain as a concept. It's glad that you brought up blockchain. I had the opportunity to study blockchain about 7 or 8 years ago. In fact, I have a presentation on blockchain. If you look at a blockchain as a process, which I would use the word optimizes the flow of information, in the process, optimize the flow of finance, flow of materials. If you look at it from that fundamental point of view, it has a very important role to play within the community, the cell, within the cell. Let's say each cell is a village and the interaction between villages. And let's say every state would have a capital after all, interaction with the capital, wherever that is. But the role of the capital would be just to facilitate and not the power holder. The power is at the cell. Cellular intelligence interacting through blockchain, coordinated by the center. It need not be capital of the state. It could be one town, and that's another concept I have, which Japan used to have. That you do not have to have one permanent capital of the country. The capital is to move around, particularly in a country like India. Only people in Delhi should not feel that we are the center. In Japan, the capital for a while was Kyoto. Then it went to Nara. Then it went to some other city. Then it went to Tokyo, because that built a sense of ownership to the local people. That this is my country. Now the guy in deep south or deep east in Manipur or Tripura, how much they connect with Delhi is a question mark. So I think blockchain could solve those problems. The answer is yes.
Okay. All right, then we meet. So we meet next time.
Yeah,
And
these are very
more
good
questions.
questions.
Yeah.
We meet next time. We'll make sure that next time there is no delay in connection.
Yeah, I think I will work with Upendra 30 minutes before to make sure. I think I got it. I know the link that I got, I should have pasted after opening Chrome,
Yeah,
which I did not do.
don't worry. Thanks, Upendra. Where are you?
Yeah,
I'm-
he's
I'm
there.
here.
I'm listening.
Show your face. So we are all together.
Give me a second.
Yeah, there is.
There you go, Upendra. So Upendra, next time, just you and I would connect 15 minutes before. In any case.
Absolutely. We'll do that.
Okay, thanks
Yeah.
everybody. I hope
Thank you.
you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed, Upendra. And
Yeah,
Priya.
absolutely we did.
Yes, sir. Thank
Great.
you.
Oh,
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Partha is
Sorry.
also a good speaker.
One point.